Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd. It's my friends at Yarnspirations.com. Yarnspirations tells me that a lot of people that start to do hats for the first time prefer to do their hats in rows instead of doing circular knitting needles. This allows the pattern to basically be a flat panel, and then it will then eventually just kind of curve up like this, and therefore you'll sew the one side together in order to form the hat. And that's what we're going to be doing today. This is using 8mm size US 11 knitting needle. Now I prefer to use circular knitting needles because the sticks are a little bit cumbersome for me, and so it makes it more compact in my lap. What we're going to be using today on camera is called Bernat Softee Chunky. It's the same yarn that will be in the pattern here, as well as the sample that I was practicing last night. I did the man's version, and that was done with natural color, and then we're going to be doing today's tutorial in soft mauve. So zoomed out, it's a flat panel as you see here. I marked the right side of the work, so I'll always be able to tell, especially when I'm putting things together. But once you get to this part, it's going to be very obvious that this is the right side and this is the wrong side. So the right side just means that when you're looking at somebody wearing it, that's the right side of the project, and the inside of it is the wrong side. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the easy repeat of a brim, and then we're going to go right into this stocking knit stitch, and that's where we're going to continue. So what I'm going to do today is pretend that you don't know how to knit, and we use video chapters. If you'd like to skip the basics of steps and just get right into it, you can do that as well. See the video description for those, or the pinned comment. So we have our knitting needles here, and I like my circulars instead of the sticks because they're much shorter and they prevent from banging around, and I can keep it within my space. So if you're waiting somewhere, those are a nice option instead of the two sticks. And we're going to treat it like they're two sticks, but they're still joined together. We're going to take our yarn, and the yarn ball is sitting in, when I'm knitting, it's sitting in this direction when I'm doing the English method, okay? So I'm not doing continental, so my yarn ball is here. If I'm a crocheter, it's over here. So it's opposite to what you might be used to. You're going to take the yarn strand, okay, and you are going to pull it around your finger twice and close your hand on top of the two strands. Okay. So just around your finger twice and close. You're going to take and play the game of leapfrog. If you know a different way of slip knotting, then do it. But in my case, this is the way my mom showed me when I was a kid, and it works. So just leapfrog over top of the other one, and then take the new one. And this frog is so excited when it jumps over the other one, it accidentally goes off the platform and onto your slip knot. Okay, so just wrap it around your finger twice, pinch it, play the game of leapfrog. First one over, and then this frog is so excited when it jumps, it actually jumps all the way over and jumps off the finger, off the platform, and therefore this is your slip knot. So you're going to put it onto your knitting needle in this way. We have left and right hand videos. Whatever one I'm pointing to is the one that you're going to do. Okay, so whatever hand that you decided, and then you're just going to put it onto your knitting needle and pull the strand that is leading towards the yarn ball. And when you pull, don't choke the hell out of it. Okay, so make sure it can slide nicely. And we're going to put it on this side, and I'm going to show you a cast on with a twist method, and this is the way that I prefer. Now we have to load this yarn into your yarn feeding hand, and so many people do different things. My mom showed me the throw method, but the way that I learned during COVID when I started to really try to learn knitting is that I learned that there was a better way, at least for me. If you have a different way, again, I don't want to ruin your creativity, do it the way that you prefer. To do this, you're going to grab your pinky and you're going to grab in front and rotate like this. I want you to take this yarn and pull it up your fingers like this and put it behind your pointer finger like that. So you're going to have tension here, so you don't have to grab on so tight. It's going to come up through your hand, and then you're going to use the top of this finger here to feed the yarn. Now, because the yarn is in this direction, so when I go to pull it, it pulls into the back of my hand. So if the yarn was on this side, it would pull out of my hand. Okay, so let's reload. Pinky, scoop it, and wrap. Up through the front of your hand, right here. When I say the front, what I'm looking at. And you're gonna go behind your pinky, or behind your pointer right here. So when you're using this, it'll look like that. Last time. So wrap it and scoop it in the front of your hand, and then push your pinky, or sorry, your pointer finger behind. And this is how you're gonna hold your yarn when you're feeding it. Okay, so now we're gonna start the cast on process. Now that we've done both, you'll just require some practice, but it will come to you pretty soon. Let's begin. On camera, I'm going to be actually making the 6 to 10-year-old, but I'm going to give you the instructions for all 3 sizes. You will notice in the pattern that there was 3 sizes given. It says to cast on 53, 57, or 61. 53 is the child version, 57 is the ladies version, and then 61 is the man's version. You are going to insert this needle into this loop that is resting on here. With this particular yarn and anything like this chunky stuff, you don't want to be too tight with it because it's going to be impossible to get your stitches through it, especially in the beginning. So take it and go inside of the same loop. So when you look at it from a down perspective, it's opened up that loop so that they're both sharing. And this needle is on the back side. You are just going to rotate your pointer finger around and just rest it off and just re-grab your needle. And when you slide down, you're going to be taking that one with you, okay? And when you're sliding down, it pulls that yarn down. You'll see it right here. It pulls that down yarn and stays on the needle, and you flick it forward and push up. Pull up a little bit, and we want to do a twist cast on. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this loop on this one that I'm tapping, and I'm going to put it onto this one. But we're not just going to put it on easily. We are, but what we need to do is that we need to rotate this one back and scoop this, and see how I'm holding this from flying off, and scoop it underneath and grab onto that loop and place it onto that needle. Okay, and so now you have 2 loops. So if you were child version, it's 53 loops, 57 for ladies, 61 for men. So now we have 2. So to do another one, going in, same position. So you're in, the needle is on the back. Wrap it on the back side, pull down, and it will take the yarn with it, flick it forward, and push up. Give it a bit of slack because it's easier. And then rotate this needle and scoop it onto the other one and slide on and remove. Okay, so going in, wrap, pull down, flick forward, give it a bit of slack. If you don't give it slack, you're gonna have a hell of a time. Okay, and then just put it on. So how many stitches have I cast on so far? If you said more than 4, you're in trouble. If you didn't say 4, you're in trouble still. So going in, wrap, pull down, flick forward, give it a bit of slack, and twist. That slack when you go to twist is so key. But you'll notice that when I'm putting it on here, I'm not reefing down on this to tighten this too much onto this needle because I need to get my stitches in there eventually. So in, wrap, pull down, slack, and twist. So what I want you to do is that I want you either to cast on the number, so either 53, 57, or 61, and then everything will line up. So I currently have 2, 4, and 6, and so get to the number that you need in order to match the size. I'll be right back after I cast on my 53. As a quick demonstration, this process is actually pretty easy. It's pretty quick too. So it's just because you're learning, it may be a bit slow. Don't focus on your speed, focus on the quality of your movements, in order to get used to the needles being one with your hands. So I now have 53 on here. You could have 57 or 61. I have double counted just to make sure. Let's go back to the pattern and let's explain what we're going to do next. So right here on the pattern, we've just cast on, and now first and second row is going to be repeated a number of times. And what we're going to do is row number 1 is going to be the right side, and then row number 2 is the wrong side. And I'm going to, after we get this stuff, just the first 2 rows done, I'm going to have you mark the right side of the work because it will just be easier for you in the future. So it says once we get those 2 rows done, we're going to repeat the 2 rows 3 more times. So I say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then I just circle that as I go. What I'm going to do for you is that when I started knitting, I always had really crappy edges, and so I'm going to show you a cheating technique that people that are familiar with knitting do. It takes just a few seconds, and because of that, you'll end up with really nice edging, and because it's really discouraging when you see your edges all over the place. And so we'll be doing that when we're doing rows number 1 and 2, and then you'll be repeating that for the number of times. So there's technically 8 rows. Let's begin row number 1. So let's begin row number 1. The pattern says to knit 1, and then we're going to purl 1, knit 1 all the way to the end. So the knit 1 is just standing by itself. However, because your edging can look like crap, instead of what we want to do is that we want to slip stitch knitwise. So we're going to take this needle and we're just going to grab that loop and just force it onto the other one without doing anything to it, making sure that the yarn is still in behind. And this will carry up on the side. So you never actually purl or knit the first one, you just carry it like that as a slip stitch. And so in row number 2, we're gonna slip stitch purlwise, which I'll show you. Now the next stitch is now a purl. So we have to take this yarn and go between the knitting needles, right in between, and I call them goalposts. So you're gonna come in between the 2 and rest it in front before you do anything. This yarn has to be in front. And you're going to take this needle that I'm wiggling, and you're going to go straight into the mouth of this one right here, and this needle will be on the front side instead of the back. And so when you look at it like this, they're both into the same loop, and you take this yarn and you wrap around the front needle and you pull down and you flick it backwards away from you, and then you push up because it's on this needle, and then carefully just pull up. Now the first row that we're about to do is tight. It will loosen up after this row is done, but it will always be tight on the first row. So if you're struggling, once you get past the first row, it becomes easier. The next stitch will be a knit stitch. So you have to move the yarn in behind the goalposts, so go between the goalposts and back to the back. And you're going to knit stitch. So you're going to take this needle and scoop up underneath like we were doing when we did the cast on, and push it towards the back so it's inside the mouth of that stitch. Wrap the back needle this time and pull down and flick towards you and slide up. So you are going to repeat these steps over and over to the very end. So the next one is a purl. So we put the yarn in front first. We push in with this needle on the front side, wrap the front needle and push back. So what do we have to do first when we do the knit stitch? We have to make sure that this yarn is in back. So go between the goalposts and do the knit stitch. Wrap the back needle and coming through. Okay, so this is going to be row number 1 every time that you have it. So the moving of the yarn just takes a few seconds, maybe a second or so, just to go back and forth. And you are going to notice the difference of the look of the stitches. Okay, so I can tell which one is purl and which one is the knit stitch. The ones that have the cross in front like this is a purl. This one, do you see it? There's no cross there. That is a knit stitch. So you'll see that happening there. Okay, so if you're ever confused, you look for the crossing. So this is a purl, knit, knit. Identifying your stitches is the hardest part, I think, of knitting. So if I just knit this last one, the next one has to be a purl. So I need you to go all the way across for row number 1, just like this, and it will take you right to the end. The last stitch at the end of the row is a knit stitch. Okay, so that's just a matter of just alternating between the two stitches all the way across. And once we get all the way across, this thing is going to get a lot looser onto the needles, and then a lot more enjoyable as well. So I'll see you at the end of the row number 1. I'm coming up near to the end, just 2 stitches left, and I'm still alternating. And if your stitch counts are right, regardless of which side, the last one is a knit stitch. And now going forward, these stitches are going to slide a lot easier. So what you have to do now is transfer this needle to your hand that is going to do the knitting, and just reverse it like this. So if you were using sticks, the same thing, just switch your hands so that you have a fresh start to go for row number 2. So let's begin row number 2. So to prevent those crappy edges from happening, we want to do a slip stitch purlwise. So normally we would purl the first one, but we're not going to. We're just going to put the yarn in front of this needle here and go down the mouth of it and just pull it off like that. And therefore we didn't do anything with it, we're just carrying it up. Okay, this is what's creating the beautiful edging. Now the next one is a knit stitch, so we have to then take this yarn that is in the front between the goalposts and behind, and then knit the next one. So these ones here that you're slipping, you're only ever using them as a real stitch at the end of each row, if that helps you to know that. So we're going to begin, the next one is a knit stitch, and then the next one is a purl. And you keep alternating this all the way to the other side. So knit stitch, and I'm going to show you a little visual in just a second. So we can see underneath which the stitch looks like. So we can see that this was a purl. In this particular row, we can see it's a purl. We can see that this one here, there's nothing stopping it, so this is a knit stitch. So because this is a rib stitch pattern, we see that this is a knit stitch. So the last one was a purl, so we're going to make that as a knit stitch. So we maintain with what we see underneath, so to keep the ribbing going. We can see the cross here, so the next one has to be a purl to keep that going. If you get it backwards and you put a purl over top of a knit stitch and etc., that's called the seed stitch, but that's not what we're doing today. So the next one is a knit, and then the next one has to be purl. And you need to do this all the way to the end. Okay, hopefully I'm trying not to mansplain, but it's turning into that. So go all the way to the end of row number 2, and then we're going to do a recap of 1 and 2, where you'll do your repeating where the video chapter will start. I'm at the end of row number 2. So what I'm going to do in a moment is that I'm going to go back to the pattern, show you where we are, and you're going to repeat 1 and 2, but I'm going to make sure that I kick you off for both of those so that you get it. So the last one will be a knit stitch, or sorry, a purl stitch. So just change your hands over, and now because of the thickness of the yarn, this actually grows really quite quickly. Let's go back to the pattern. So now we have to repeat rows number 1 and 2 a total of 3 more times. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to demonstrate number 1 without the mansplaining, and then demonstrate number 2 in the next 2 clips. And we're going to begin to do that. So that's where the repeat will start if you're using video chapters. Let's begin row number 1 again. We want to do a slip stitch knitwise. So we're going to take this, and the needle is in front of the yarn, and you're just going to take the first one and slide it off. Now the next one is going to be a purl, so move the yarn in between the goalposts and then purl the next one. The next one is a knit, go between the goalposts and knit. So it's going to be purl, knit, all the way to the end for row number 1. Coming up to the end of row number 1, just for this one time only, I'm going to have you do something before you switch your needles over to the other hand. So you go right to the end, the last one should be a knit stitch. Before you switch off your hands, what we're looking at right now is the right side of the work. So what I need you to do is grab a spare piece of yarn. I'm just grabbing it from something else that I have here. And you can use a tapestry needle if you don't have a crochet hook. But what I'm going to do is just carefully slide my hook behind some stitches without pulling on it, and just looping the yarn and pulling it through like that. And then this loop here, just put the tail ends through. So whenever I see this, I'm gonna know that I'm on the right side of the work, because once we get the main body done, it's gonna start you on the right side, and you're gonna wonder, well, how do you know which is the right side? It will be obvious later, but for now, just do that. It'll be a lot easier. So when you're looking at this side and it's not there, that's the wrong side. Let's move on to row number 2, which is part of your repeat. Row number 2, let's switch our hands over, and we're going to slip stitch purlwise. Okay, so to do that, just get your yarn ready and put the needle behind this yarn and go into the mouth of it, scoop it and pull it off. And now the next one will be a knit stitch, so you have to move the yarn in between the goalposts and you'll do a knit stitch. And now, because we're now on this row, you're gonna really kind of see where the stitches are below. So you can see that these are the knit stitches, and these that are sunk in, those are purl when you're looking at this side of the work. Okay, so the next one is gonna be a purl, and we can see there's a cross beam here, so it was a purl underneath. And the next one's a knit. So you're just doing what you need to do, and the very last stitch, if your counts are right, will be a purl. So please do this for row number 2. Coming up to the end of number 2, and just nice and easy, flow it, put on the TV, music, whatever you need to do to relax, if this is relaxing for you. And your last one should be a purl. So you're just gonna switch your hands, and at this point we have to repeat rows number 1 and 2 only 2 more times. So you'll do 1 and 2, 1 and 2. See the video chapters for the repeat of that. We make sure that you don't put that extra stitch marker in that, because you've already done it once. And I'm gonna need you to repeat now rows number 1 and 2 2 more times, and then we're gonna begin the main body of the hat after that. I'll be right back. So I'm back again, and now I have just finished the repeat of just doing the brim area right here. So when I finished, I actually finished on the wrong side of the work, and I can tell that because of the stitch marker. So when I go to turn my work, I'm looking at the right side of the work here, which is where we need to begin to do the body of the hat. Now it says in the instructions here, which I think is kind of confusing, but hey, what do I know? It says begin a knit row, proceed in the stocking stitch until it begins to measure 5 inches, 6 or 6. So child is 5, and then the adult, 2 adults are both 6 inches. The stocking knit stitch is basically the stitches that you would see if you were wearing socks on the outside of your socks, a lot of sweaters and stuff. It's the stocking knit stitch. So right now what we're seeing here is a combination of purl and knit stitch. So what we're going to do now is that the entire row will either be a purl or it will be a knit stitch. So when we go to start this row, we're going to be starting on the right side of the work, and we are going to be doing the knit stitch first, and then the next row, which is row number 2, would then be a purl. And so we don't have to worry about alternating the stitches. So let's begin the stocking knit stitch, rows 1 and 2, and whenever you're ready for the 6 inches or the 5 inches, depending when you get there, the last row has to be a wrong side that you're going to finish. So when you start the shaping of the crown, you're back on the right side of the work to begin. Let's begin. So the body of the hat, we're going to start, and the first row will be a knit stitch. So I still want you to do the slip stitch knitwise on the beginning, because you're noticing that the edging is looking really good. Okay, it's nice and flat, it's looking great. So we're just going to knit stitch all the way through. You don't need to count, you don't need to alternate between the stitches, you just have to enjoy the stitch work. So just knit all the way across and to the end, and I'll see you at the end of the row. At the end of row number 1 for the body of the hat, just knit all the way through. Okay, so what we're going to do is just pull out and turn your work, and now this is going to be the wrong side of the hat now, and you can see by the stitch marker that you are looking at the wrong side, and we're moving on to row number 2. Row number 2, I still want you to do the slip stitch purlwise, so make sure the yarn is in front of the needle, go down the mouth of the stitch, pull it off, and keep this yarn on this side. So don't switch it back like you were before, because you are going to purl all the way across. So this is going to make the body of the hat all stocking knit stitch on the other way. Now if you did a knit stitch all the way on this side, it would be called a garter stitch. So if every row is a knit stitch, it's then called a a garter stitch. But alternating knit stitch between purl like this, it's called the stocking knit. So do row number 2, and you're going to repeat rows number 1 and 2 until you either have 5 inches from the start of the brim, so right from the very beginning, or 6 inches if it's either the woman's or the man's size. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm at the end of number 2, and so then I'm just going to turn my work around and then do rows number 1 and 2 until it's 5 inches. And you're going to see now it's going to transition, as you probably can already tell, and so it's gone from this here to being more flat looking, and that's what we're looking for. Please complete rows number 1 and 2 until it's either 5 inches from here to here for the child or 6 inches from here to here. And I'll be right back. Make sure that you do finish on the wrong side so that you can start the shaping of the top or the shaping of the crown on the right side. So I'm going to leave you a nice juicy tip, especially if you're new at knitting. Whenever you're looking at this side, you are doing a knit stitch. And whenever you are doing the other side, see how it looks like this? These are the cross beams when you're doing the purl. So when you're on this side, you're doing the purl, and when you're on this side, it maintains the knit. It's a knit stitch to maintain the flatness. So just think, if you ever get lost and you're saying, well, I don't know if I'm purling or knitting, if you're looking at this side and you're knitting, it's a knit stitch. And if you're on this side and you're looking at that, it's a purl. So now my dimensions are met that I can move on now with shaping the crown. There's 10 rows in order to do it. We should be looking at the right side of the work, so I can tell with this, but also I can tell with the stocking knit stitch, I should be seeing the flat side of this in order to start shaping the crown. So if you're looking at this and that's your next row, then that's a problem. So make sure that you're ready to go and start to shape the crown now. And there's a difference of size right at the last 10th row, but we'll get there and we'll just take our time in doing so. Let's begin the first row. To do the first row, we're going to introduce a knit 2 together. So in order to have the reduction happen so that it will shape towards the top of the head, we have to do that. So we're going to start with our first stitch. It's K1, so it's knit 1, but I just want you to slip stitch knitwise like we have been doing the whole time. Leave the yarn towards the back because we are looking at the good side of the work and we're going to be knitting ourselves across. Here's the repeat for the remaining of the row, regardless of which side you're on. You're going to knit the next 2 stitches together as one. So you take the needle and you gather both of the loops together and put them together, yarn over, and just bring it through and slide off. So 2 stitches just became 1. The next 2 stitches are going to be knit only. So you just knit those ones. So 1 and 2. Okay, and then the repeat starts all over again right to the end. So the next 2 are going to become together. So you scoop up both of them, put them together, knit them together. So to knit 2 together, and then knit the next 2. Please do this all the way around our row, all the way across for your row number 1. At the end of number 1, the last 2 are just by themselves with just knitting. You're going to turn your work and we're going to go back to the pattern because I want to point out something to you because there's instructions that appear to be missing, but they're not. So now we just finished row number 1 of shaping of the crown, and now we're going to move up here. It says second and alternative rows, so it's a purl. So you notice that number 4 is missing, number 6 is missing, and number 8 is missing. Okay, so those are just going to be purls. So the other instructions 3, 5, 7, 9, and 10 are showing you what it is. So whenever we have that, I'm just going to say purl across when we get to these particular rows. So not every row will have a decrease as you're seeing here. Let's begin number 2. So let's begin number 2. It's a purl. So you're just going to slip stitch purlwise, and then you're just going to purl all the way across. Okay, so you don't got to worry about counting, and this helps stabilize the radius of the hat as well by not doing any reduction of this particular row. Please do this for row number 2. Coming up to the end of number 2, just purling my way all the way across. We'll turn our hands around and we'll begin number 3. Let's begin number 3. There is no decrease, it's just a straight knit across, but let's slip stitch knitwise the first one anyway, so that we continue our nice edging as you're seeing, and then we're just going to knit our way across for row number 3. I'll see you at the end of the row in just a moment. The end of number 3, just knitting all our way across, no stress, just knitting, and then we're going to turn our work and begin number 4. And what was it about number 4? Do you recall? Yeah, it's the alternative row. So that means that it's going to be a purl. Okay, so just start slip stitch purlwise and then continue to purl all the way across for row number 4. I'll see you at the end of the row. So I'm coming to the end of number 4. Unfortunately, I've had these knitting needles 10 years and they broke just midway through. So the cord actually came out. I'm not going to throw this out yet, but it actually came out at the back end here. So if knitting is not going to make you homicidal, I think that this is quite a possibility that it could be. So I got to figure out how I can fix this, or I have to trash it and just buy a new one. So what I'm going to do is see these Barbie wannabes, these little sparkle needles. I don't even know where I got them, but I'm going to be transferring that over on the next row. So you don't need to transfer your needles. Just if it breaks like that, that's all I have left to do. So let's begin number 5. Okay, so I'm going to transfer my work to this one as I'm stitching. So we're going to start in row number 5. We're going to begin, it's going to be knit 1, so just knit, slip stitch knitwise. And then you're going to begin then the repeat, and then the repeat will be knit 2 together. So going in, oh my God, look at these sparkles. Oh. Okay, and we're going to knit 2 together and then knit 1. Okay, so that's going to be your repeat all the way through. So you're going to knit 2 together and then knit 1. Okay, knit 2 together and then knit 1. Please do this all the way to the other side. I'll see you there in a moment. Coming all the way to the end, I'm just maintaining that, and we're going to say goodbye to our knitter's pride. Bye-bye. It's so funny. I'm homosexual with sparkle with sparkle needles, and they're straight. Anyway, we're gonna turn our work and let's begin. Row number 6. Look how long these things are. Oh my God. Okay, row number 6 is an alternative, and so we're gonna slip stitch purlwise and just purl our way all the way across with our sparkles. Oh my God. Good thing I'm having a good day. And we're gonna purl all the way across for row number 6. Okay, I'm purling all the way across. These needles are as bad as me trying to pretend that I'm straight. It's so awkward. Okay, so now we're gonna turn our work and begin number 7, which is just gonna be a straight knit row. Let's do that. Okay, straight knit row, or gaily forward. Just slip stitch knitwise the first one, and then just knit all the rest all the way across. I'll be right back at the end. End of number 7. I've knit across, so let's turn these bad boys. I gotta suck on my stomach just to get these needles to turn around. And let's begin number 8. 8 is an alternative, so you're going to slip stitch purlwise and then purl the remaining all the way across for number 8. And we just got 2 more rows left, and I'll see you at the other side in a moment. Okay, row number 8, we're just purling all the way across. Let's turn our needles, and we're going to do the reduction rows for number 9 and 10 next, and let's begin. Okay, row number 9, we are going to knit the first one, so just slip stitch knitwise. That counts as that, and then you're just going to knit 2 together all the way across. So just grab them in sets of 2. And go all the way across for row number 9 in the same manner, and we're really going to be eliminating stitches on this row. So please do that, and I'll see you at the end of the row. Okay, coming up to the last 2, they're just knit 2 together all the way, and then we're going to begin our last row. And even though we're turning it and looking at the wrong side, we're still going to knit on the last row in order to do the final reduction. Here's the last row. I'm going to do something a little differently. So it says to K0, K1 or K0, depending on the size. So if you were a child, then, or child size, you're just going to knit 2 together all the way across. If you are a lady size, you're going to knit the first one and then knit 2 together all the remaining. And then if you were the man size, then you were just going to knit 2 together all the way to the end, because there's a difference in the number. Here's what I'm going to suggest to you though. I would just knit 2 together all the way. So forget about slip stitching like we have been at the end. Just put the first two together and knit stitch. So even though we're looking at the wrong side, we're just going to continue to do that and just knit stitch two together, or knit two together all the way across. If you have one stitch left, just knit it, and if you don't have any stitches left, then you're good to go. Okay, so I'll see you at the end of the row in just a moment. I dropped my damn stitch. So I'm at the end. So the last one was a knit two together, but if you had one stitch still left on this needle, just knit it and then be done with it. So what we're going to do is that we're going to transfer then the remaining stitches onto our long strand. So we want to take the strand that's coming from the ball, just make it extra long, because not only are we going to close the top, but we're also going to go down the back seam line. So just make it extra long, and we need to grab a tapestry needle in order to secure those ends in. So what I'm going to do is do that. So let's begin to do that. So don't pull it off your needle yet. If you do, you're gonna be even more homicidal than a broken knitting needle. Okay, so right where this is ending, so I'm just gonna be careful with it. I think these needles are gonna end up in the garbage too, because I think I've gotten so fat that I can't use them. So I'm going to take this strand and I'm just going to scoop up the yarn loop and move it onto the needle. So these are live stitches, so you want to make sure that they are on that strand before you pull it off. And I'm getting that last one off. So now these knitting needles can be recycled. And I'm just going to pull that strand, and I'm going to pull to the inside of the hat here. So I'm looking at the inside, and I'm going to pull, and it's going to shut the top here. So what I'm going to do then is right where this is coming out of here, I want to join it. So it completes a circle. You see that? So it's going to complete a circle and go across. There will be a pom-pom on the top of this, but what I would like to do, because out of security, I like to go directly opposite to where this is coming out of, and just going in, just like that. And then I like to go in an X formation across. And then I'm going to go to the inside of the hat. So I'm just going down through the center and then through the inside of the hat. And I want to flip this so the inside of the hat is facing out so that I can join the edges all the way down. So this is going to trace it all the way down. And so chances are the models are wearing their hats with the seam line on the back of the hat, and carefully just go straight across. And because you did really nice loops, get the back loop on the one side here, and then the back loop here. So it's just one. If you want to do both, you can do that. Okay, and you just keep working your way down through this. I know with crochet, like when you use one back loop, it does a nice settled job. So before I go too far, I'm gonna take a look at the other side and hope to God it looks good. Yeah, so it's nice and tight. Okay, so I'm gonna go back and continue my way down the back loops. So in just a few moments, I'm gonna have some tips for you for the pom-pom. Some people in craft shows get all antsy-pantsy. They say they're gonna give you money, but then you put a pom-pom on it, and then they say, well, if you didn't do the pom-pom, I would have paid you for it. So I'm gonna give you an option to show you what to do so that you have a removable pom-pom. So then if you do remove it and show them and then they still balk, then you know it was never the pom-pom, it's them. So I go right down to the brim. And then you can take a look at it on this side. Okay, so there is a seam line that is obvious, but that's the whole point of this particular one. If you don't want seam lines in your hats, then you have to use circular knitting needles. You're then going to take the strand and then you're just going to weave it through some of the yarn going back up. Now, split the plies. Just don't go between yarn strands, because if you split plies, then it's virtually impossible to get out. It is a wearable, so people are going to toss the thing on and off. And so I've made 2 of these for my donation box. I like to, most of my tutorial work ends up in the donations for my local family resource center, which I love. Never been there, but I have friends that drop it off for me. And then I'm going to take the other strand here, and I'm going to, it's the beginning one, and do the same thing of breaking it in. So I never want to put the needle so deep that it comes out the good side of the work. And again, break those plies up, because it's going to do you a favor. Once that's all in, we're going to move to the pom-pom next, and we'll show you how to do that as well. So you can flip it, you got a nice hat there, and you can take out your stitch marker, and you're going to put on a pom-pom if you feel like it. And the top still looks okay. The back, the seam line's pretty okay too, and we're going to do a pom-pom next. So now I want to prepare my pom-pom, and I'm just going to take the same strand that I've been working with my hat with, and I'm going to grab a pom-pom, and you can usually feel where they have like the tags and stuff. So this is going to face down in the hat, so nobody will ever see it. So what I'm going to do is carefully jam in my needle into the same positioning where that stuff is. Okay, these things are really tight. So I get my pom-poms on Amazon, and you're just going to pull that through. If it's too easy to come in and out, then it will be a problem later, so it'll be a little bit of friction. So now I've got this, and I'm going to take one strand, and I'm going to go down through one side of the center point. So just going into the top here, take it down one side. Okay, and just release it out, and take the other one and go down the other side of that same hole. And then take that to the inside as well. So flipping it to the inside, take both strands and tie it into a bow tie. So if somebody gives you these excuses that they would have bought the hat if you wouldn't have put a pom-pom, if you put it as a bow tie, you can just undo the bow tie and take it out. And if they want to wash the hat, they could just undo the bow tie and take the pom-pom off, and then reset it later if they feel like doing so. But anyway, this would be your hat, complete with pom-pom. And the pom-pom is meant to be oversized, but you can find smaller ones, but I think it's kind of cute. And that's it for today. We hope you've enjoyed, and please leave me a comment on what you thought today. We'll see you. Bye-bye.